Order. Question number 5, James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and reads, does he stand by all his statements after almost 7 years as Prime Minister?
Order. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, especially the statement I made, which was at least he read it out better than Andrew Little.
Order.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
Does he still stand by his statement that, quote, only the odd 1 or 2 kids turn up to school without lunch, given that a Principals Federation survey found that 73% of low decile schools use their core educational funding to feed their students every day?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I stand by the full quote that was made at the time the context it was given, but I would make the point this is a government that's delivered over 5 million breakfasts since it's been in office.
That's right.
Supplementary.
Order. Order. Supplementary. Order. The level of interjection and noise is too high. Supplementary question, James Shaw. Order.
So is he saying that breakfast is enough for kids and that they don't need lunch also?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, well, for a start, Mr. Speaker, this is the government that's worked hard to create more jobs and has more Kiwis in history than ever before. This is a government that's actually raised benefits for the first time in 43 years. This is a government that's ensured that now children under 13 can go to the doctor for free. This is the government that's seen hundreds of thousands of state houses houses insulated.
Order. I have a point of order from James Shaw.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question was in relation to students eating breakfast and lunch, not in relation to unemployment benefits.
Order. No, but the question may have been in relation to that, but it wasn't. It was, is the Prime Minister effectively saying breakfast is enough and they don't need lunch and dinner? That is the sort of question that gives a fairly wide ambit in the answer. Does the Prime Minister have no further supplementaries? Supplementary question, James Shaw.
What advice has he received from his Education Minister in response to the Principals Federation survey, which shows that several schools are spending $2,000 a term of their own funds to feed hungry children?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that firstly, this is a government that is spending around about $10.8 billion in education in total, Mr. Speaker. That's the first point. Secondly, this is a government that has worked with Fonterra and Sanitarium and KidsCan to ensure that there is a great every decile 1, 2 and 3 school that wants, in fact any school that wants a breakfast in school will be provided. And Mr. Speaker, this is a government that's also continued and expanded fruit in schools. And Mr. Speaker, you know, we are working very hard with those schools to ensure they can provide the support for youngsters that deserve it.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, James Shaw.
I seek leave to table an OAA from the Education Minister dated the 11th of August, showing that she has not sought or received any advice from officials in the wake of the Principals
Leave is
Federation
sought to
survey.
table that particular OAA. Is there any objection? Order. No, I need to put the leave. Any member can either agree to it or decline. So leave is sought to table it. Is there any objection? Yes, there is objection.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw. Order. James Shaw, supplementary question.
Should schools use their core education funding for food rather than books or computers? And if not, what funds should they use, or should they let those children go hungry?
Well,
the Right Honourable
Speaker,
Prime
I've
Minister.
outlined the extensive programs that the government's and partnered up with others. Over 5 million breakfasts is provided under this government. The record speaks for itself.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, James Shaw.
So given that 75% of schools are saying that they have to use their core operational funding to feed their own students, would he say that all of the initiatives that he has just outlined are failing to actually solve the problem?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's a straight outright inaccurate statement to say that 75% of schools are using their funding to feed children.
Question number 6, Jackie Dean.